The search for James Kenneth Johnson shifted from Dallas to Oklahoma at about 7:30 last night. Lawmen began moving into the Marietta and Ardmore, Oklahoma area after Johnson's kidnapping victim, Dallas business executive Lloyd Ross, managed to escape from the mental hospital fugitive at a Marietta service station while Johnson was attempting to pay for a tank of gasoline. Station owner Austin Reed described what happened.
I filled the car, and I walked up like to the window, and I said, it'll be $7.10. So he starts trying to look like he's trying to get the money, and I see the money in his left hand, but he seemed like he's having trouble getting his right hand over. I still didn't pay any attention to it until the guy jumped out of the car on the other side and ran and hollered back to me and said, "Look out, he's got a gun."
Did you ever see the gun?
No, I'd never seen the gun. But I take his word for it.
Ross, who was unharmed, was taken to the Love County Sheriff's Office in Marietta for questioning by authorities, including the FBI. Ross wouldn't talk with newsmen, but he told authorities that Johnson did not seem coherent. However, Johnson did tell Ross he was running because he had shot a policeman in Dallas. Ross was escorted by Dallas policemen to Lake Murray Park, just south of Ardmore, 17 miles north of Marietta, where his car was found abandoned. About 100 law officers set up roadblocks around the entire Ardmore area. Canine units were ordered, and the Dallas Police Department's helicopter was joining the hunt for Johnson. Meanwhile, Johnson had managed to steal another car, but was spotted by 2 Oklahoma State patrolmen at a roadblock on the northeast edge of the city. Johnson was reported hit in an exchange of gunfire, but was lost in a wooded area. This was about midnight. An hour later, with the aid of the helicopter searchlights and a sweep of the area by officers on foot, Johnson was found. Lieutenant Don Compton, coordinator of the search efforts, told of the capture.
The helicopter came over with the flood lamps on, and he was laying in a clump of brush about 50 yards off the road, and they caught a glimpse of probably his foot. He moved his leg, and the light reflected off his white sole of his shoe, and they thought that that was him, so they moved into the area. He didn't answer them when they hollered at him. Yes, they hollered, asking to come out.
Johnson was rushed to Ardmore Hospital in a patrol car. The first reports were that he had been shot 3 or 4 times in the chest. Now officers say he was shot in the back and side, possibly by the same shotgun blast from the gun of State Trooper Jim Siegler. The 34-year-old convicted bank robber has escaped from authorities 6 times in recent years, twice from the state penitentiary at McAlester, Oklahoma. Police in the Ardmore area have nicknamed him the Rabbit because of his uncanny ability to seemingly run in all directions once he's loose. Lieutenant Lloyd Hobbs recovered Johnson's weapon, a .38 revolver. Johnson was listed in critical condition. Johnson has been convicted of several crimes, including bank robbery, and sentenced to serve a total of 123 years in prison. Until this morning, authorities had a difficult time keeping him in custody long enough to serve his sentences. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Ardmore, Oklahoma.
It was a great experience. I didn't go down with the intention of managing, but we had a little problem about halfway through the season, and they asked if I would take over the club. And since I got so many of the Senator players at that time down there, then I thought that, instead of having someone else come over, that I knew them well enough that I could, go ahead and take over. And we went from 5th place to 1st place, and things, worked out pretty good. We ended up losing in the playoffs the last game of a 7-game series, but on the whole, it worked out great, and I think everyone was well satisfied with it.
Dick, is this something that perhaps you would eventually like to pursue?
I never really thought about it until this happened, and I always thought that, you know, since I got a college degree, that once I finished playing ball, I didn't care to go back to the minor leagues in any capacity whatsoever. But I got a little new light on it by going down there, and I think it was a great experience. Now, whether I would, you know, take this as just something other than fantasy or not, I don't really know. But I plan on going back this coming winter, so there must be a little something to it.
What was the most difficult aspect of that job?
Well, just the newness, I think, really, because I think there's more pressure over there to win than even here in the States as far as the people are concerned, because if you get on a losing streak or individually you have a bad week or two, they just want to get rid of you. I mean, they don't, they make no bones about it. So I think there's a lot of pressure there, and then I think the hardest thing was all the guys were my friends. We had played together, and 4 or 5 of us were with the Senators last year, and you know, one day you're the manager and a teammate and a friend, and you know, and then the next day you got the responsibility of writing the lineup card and trying to make everyone happy, and it's impossible to do, friends or no friends, but things worked out great, and I think I'd like to pursue it a little more later on, but I'm not going to even think about it now.
Well, number one, you mentioned a possible conflict of interest, and this was, I think you said, based on some OYO guidelines, and I have to disagree that there are no guidelines that say that a member of an agency that has its own bylaws, its own board of directors, and its own personnel policies cannot be a member of the DCA board. Steering Committee for Neighborhood Credit Unions existed before we knew anything about the DCA board. The guidelines say that you cannot be a member of an agency that directly controls your employment or sets policies controlling your employment. That is not the situation with me. Our agency has its own personnel policies. It does its own hiring and firing, and DCA has nothing to say about that.
Do you feel there are any other points that you object to?
Yes. On the conflict of interest, Hamlet King issued a letter some time ago. He's in the OEO region, that he found no conflict of interest in my own particular situation. And I believe that letter still stands. There was some statements that the credit unions are in financial difficulty. That's not true. The credit unions are in the black. There isn't any financial trouble with the credit unions. I think if you check our financial statements, you'll find that the credit unions are in good financial shape. There was a statement that there's a power base. And that is an absolute impossibility when you consider that the target area representatives constitute 1/3 of the DCA board. The other 2/3 consist of the city and the county members and white middle-class persons. One does well to hold his on a board of that sort. The target area representative does. Concerning the statement that the credit unions are profit-making institutions, that's, again, not true. Under the law, credit unions are non-profit organizations. They really cannot make a profit. They're not required to make a profit. They are required to provide a place for savings and a place for making low-cost loans to the credit union members. With regard to a statement that there was financial manipulation,
concerning the youth development program. The only dealings that the credit unions have had with youth development is to request that they deposit some of the money that they have now in the downtown banks in the credit unions where it could help poor people to make loans. They have a good deal of money in checking accounts, which is just laying around, has been there for some 2 years almost now. It was our feeling that that money should be deposited in the credit unions. There are 3 credit unions. Each is insured up to $20,000 per deposit. They could put at least $60,000 of their money in these credit unions to be perfectly safe. There have never been any undocumented loans, as some statements were made with regard to the credit unions. Every loan is documented all the way from the initial application through the note card. I do not belong to 4 out of 5 advisory boards, as I think as you stated on one occasion. And I would have to question the source of information that on that. Never belong to 4 boards. Do belong to 2 boards, out of the 5. One, because I'm a target area representative in East Dallas, and under the East Dallas Board's bylaws, I'm thus automatically a member of that board.
The reason the Dallas transit system is losing money is due to the passengers. There just aren't enough of them. On an average day, about 72,000 passengers pay to ride the buses. But just to break even, DTS officials say they need an average each day of about 5,000 more revenue passengers. As things now stand, passenger fares produce nearly $32,000 on an average day. That's about $2,000 short of what's needed. In an effort to increase business, the system is conducting an extensive advertising campaign in the local papers. The ads emphasize the advantages of riding the bus, but so far they have not reversed the trend of declining passenger revenues, one of the major problems for public transit.
In my view, the major problem facing the mass transportation systems in America today, particularly those in Dallas, Texas, is simply one of competition with the private automobile. It's just as simple as this. People do not like to be regimented to the time of exact bus schedules, notwithstanding the economic advantages of riding the bus and the fact that the service is good, the buses are new and clean and give on-time service.
Because of its financial problems, the Dallas transit system is faced with three alternatives. The system could cut services in an effort to save money. It could ask for a government subsidy to cover its deficit, or the system could increase the current bus fares.
As to these three alternatives which face us, our thinking from the standpoint of raising fares is that the fares have been raised enough in Dallas already, and each time we raise fares, we lose a large number of our customers. The last fare increase, we lost about 2 million customers over the 12-month period. So we're attempting now a fare stabilization program. The second alternative, our feeling toward the reduction of service, is that the people of Dallas don't actually want us to reduce our services to them. In fact, we're constantly receive requests from our passengers or potential passengers for an increase in our services here. So the third alternative of receiving financial aid from the general revenues of the city, we think certainly does have a good bit of validity, because we think that the service value to the entire community certainly merits the support of the community itself.
A final decision on the route DTS will take to solve its financial troubles can be expected by midsummer, because officials say by that time the surplus funds on which the system now relies will be exhausted. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
here, which I think should have been played up much larger because of this photograph. I think it's much more striking.
Have you in that picture?
Way in the angle. Here's one here, I think it's got one of the more clever titles. That'll look like you've been on the bus before when you've never been on the bus before.
They're trying to win, actually. They got their own...
So you think this is prompted by someone running against someone else?
Yes, very definitely. And also from some of the people that the contracts were not renewed or contracts changed somewhat, that they have misinformed these youngsters and have set them against and tore them up, really. And I think this is very unprofessional for any teacher or coach or administrator, either one, to do this with a bunch of kids. I think we have answered most of their questions this morning. And I met with a group of them yesterday and discussed these things, and the questions they had were more mixed up ones, one that they were told one thing and it wasn't that way at all. Like today, for example, I don't know, of course, this, when kids get talking, they said, well, you won't let us have a dance, the board won't. I said, the board has never refused you to have a dance. They told us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the board has really fought for them to have dances, and many times they wanted to drop them because of trouble with one or two youngsters. And we said we would not go against all the youngsters just because 2 or 3 of them tore up a dance. So we went ahead and had dances after each football game, and it was very beneficial and kiddos enjoyed it.
Marietta man Carl Hill spent some time with Johnson in a county jail and in the state penitentiary at McAllister. Hill said Johnson kept to himself.
Well, he's sort of about halfway dangerous and quiet, and he mostly stays to himself.
Would you say that he, as far as you know in your judgment from knowing him temporarily or for a short time, that he is mentally deranged at all?
Well, yes, sir, I believe he would be. I don't think he's a hero type. I just think he's crazy myself. Because I think life means more to anybody than doing something to lose it for.
Representatives started their day with committee hearings, which look now as though they'll keep members on the floor far into this evening, and there's still no guarantee the session will be over today. One of the biggest stumbling blocks appeared to be the Rules Committee, which held hearings all morning on the proposed joint rules and was still in session this afternoon on rules for the House itself. It looked as though another time consumer would be Representative Paul Moreno's articles of impeachment against Governor Preston Smith and Lieutenant Governor Ben Barnes. The rumor had been floating around that if the articles were reported out of committee, Moreno would not be able to present enough evidence to indict either man. However, the Speaker has referred both of those to committees that are not meeting, so it appears that neither one will come up during this special session. Still, Mr. Moreno said he had to present the articles.
Now, I know of the particular investigations that have cleared the Lieutenant Governor and what have you, but to me, the legislature and the courts are two different things, very, very different things. In a court of law, a man is found guilty within a reasonable doubt. I think that the theory that a man is innocent until proven guilty does not apply to a public official. Does not apply to a public official. And in fact, the burden is on the public official to prove his trustworthiness to the general public. This is the whole basis of my resolutions, gentlemen. I want to clear up the smell here in Texas, and I have taken it upon myself to introduce these resolutions on behalf of many, many Texans that believe the same way I do.